Well, good afternoon to everyone. Hope and trust everything is going well. My name is Dean Burns, and I'm the CEO of Ocumetics, and I wanted to take time to welcome you to, I believe it's our 10th webinar on the series of what we're doing with our accommodative IOL technology. So for those of you who have been with me before, we typically go through a short presentation followed by a fairly extensive question and answer session. One of the things that I would caution everyone against today is a lot of the questions that I had received in previous webinars were centered around whether or not you could qualify as a patient. If you have ocular issues or medical type issues, the first place you ought to start is with your own physician and just make sure that you're a good qualified candidate for cataract surgery. Once you've gotten that clearance, then we can actually talk about what the available options are for either part of the study or even when the lens is commercially available. So, what do we plan to cover today? Well, I really only have three things that I want to focus in on. I'm sure that we'll get into a lot of other questions as we go along, but I want to bring everyone back to center as to what were our objectives when we actually started the journey of making and accommodating IOL technology. And I'm going to use that word throughout, so I'll go ahead and give you definition of what that is. And accommodating IOL technology is one that actually gives you the ability to see in the distance, intermediate, and near, and it does it automatically as your brain and the available tissues in the eye interact with each other. And we've been trying to do this for quite some time. Ocumetics has been around for well over 18 years, and we've been studying the biomechanics associated with how to actually make a lens do exactly what the natural crystalline lens does. And it's been a very difficult process to do, but I think we've figured out the majority of the mechanics, and we're pretty happy to share with you what our patient results look like with this technology. The other thing is I want to go through the press release that we just released talking about our 3 month results and make sure that all of you understand what those results look like. And then we'll spend some time talking about what are the next couple steps that we need to do before we actually get to the FDA pivotal trial. And then we'll do some question and answering right after that. If you look at our technology's goals, uh, the thing that we wanted to do was to develop an accommodative IOL that delivered an accommodating amplitude of up to 3 diopters. So before the science community gives me a call or sends me an email and says, your lens can only get 3 diopters, that's not the refractive range of the technology. The refractive range actually of our technology is from 19 diopters all the way up to 26. But with that refractive range, in making and accommodating technology, you have to look at what is the amplitude capability of the technology to allow somebody to have accommodation that exceeds 1 diopter. When the FDA first provided approval on this category, 1 diopter was the acceptable range. Now, with the new ANSI standards, it's a minimum of 2. So we have a technology that we're really excited about that has the ability to exceed 3 diopters. But for right now, we are only promoting and talking about 3 diopters worth of accommodating amplitude. So that's just accommodation. So once you accommodate, you have to actually disaccommodate, and that's a safety issue. So you have to be able to do that really fast. Our lens rapidly disaccommodates, giving you the safety factor that you need if you're driving a car looking in the distance and all of a sudden you look down at your phone you want to make sure that you disaccommodate to look in the distance again very rapidly. And so we do that very quickly. Like in any technology, the image has to be sharp and crisp. And then the other thing that we wanted to make sure that we didn't do is we didn't expose the ocular environment and patients to any kind of toxic material that could harm not only the health of the eye, but also the vision of the eye. So in August, we implanted our very first lens in patients down in Mexico. So that's where we do our first in human studies. And these are two of the first two patients that actually were implanted. The gentleman that's in the green scrubs is our primary physician, and he's the one that actually did the surgeries. The 79-year-old lady on your right-hand side of your screen, this is her eye. And what we've done is we've highlighted the eye so you can actually see how the lens sits in her eye. So a couple landmarks that I'll help you with. You see that her eye has kind of like a blue hue around it. That's her iris. She is a blue eye patient. She is dilated so that we could actually see the biggest exposure that we possibly could. And when we undilate this patient, that those finger-like devices will be covered over, and the only thing that you'll see is actually the center part of the optic. So she's going to have a very good cosmetic effect when we undilate the eye. She was the one that had basically the worst vision coming into our study. And so this is an image of how she saw her grandson before she had surgery. Now this is how she sees him. And she is just absolutely thrilled with her vision. In fact, so much so, she's gotten so much independent. She loves getting in the car. She loves going to the market. The fruits and vegetables and the meats are really crystal clear to her. She can actually see texture. So she is thrilled with her vision, and she does not feel handicapped as a result of not having had this type of surgery. And more importantly, this type of technology, because she can also read and she can see in the distance very nicely. So just yesterday, we put out a press release reporting our 3-month results in our first in human, significantly de-risking the technology and certainly where we're going as an organization. In that press release, we highlighted the positive results that we've gotten, what we've done to really de-risk the investment. We talk about the life-changing experience of our patients. We have information in there from actually Dr. Vasquez about his patients. We talked a little bit about how we're going to move forward, and then more importantly, the confidence that both our organization has and the confidence that the surgery center has in Mexico to move to group 2 and move through our cohort with the studies. So let's just take a deeper dive into the press release, and let me highlight a few things for you to take into consideration as we move forward. First of all, the 3-month Group 1 data met or exceeded all of our expectations for safety, lens handling, and vision performance. So those were the protocol objectives that we went into the study with, and we needed to meet and exceed many of those parameters. Our 3-month data met and exceeded our internal benchmarks for the study. And from a safety perspective, we delivered really well on this lens. As you may or may not know, typically we do our safety studies in rabbits, and that's our biocompatibility study. FDA actually requires you to duplicate that in humans, and you can either do it in a first in human, which is what we've chosen to do, or you can actually do it as the first phase of an FDA pivotal trial. We didn't want to go into a pivotal trial not really knowing the answer, so we did our safety right up front in our first in human. And boy, did we knock the safety parameter out of the ballpark. So we're really happy with that. In fact, if you talk to Dr. Vasquez about that, he'll tell you that many of his patients that actually were implanted had experienced a true life-changing event. They were classified as being legally blind, which meant that they couldn't see well enough to either drive a car or operate any kind of machinery, etc. And that his patients are now reading and enjoying everyday life activities. And some are even driving. So it's pretty significant if you can get your driver's license following this type of surgery. The impact of their independence and sense of freedom has been remarkable, according to Dr. Vasquez, and he is our principal investigator for this particular study. He is excited about not only being a part of the study, but the fact that his patients are doing extremely well. So much so that I talked to him right after Christmas, and he was so excited about moving to Group Two, having met the standards that we had set for Group One. So here's another image of Dr. Vasquez as he was going through his training. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure that our investment community heard from us is that we've done a very good job with de-risking this investment. So the study successfully validated the Group One group, the core technology, and it actually cleared the pathway to advancing the clinical study forward. One of the things that we take for granted and we don't say it enough is that a first in human study is not necessarily about perfection because we're going to learn things along the way. But as we learn things, we need to reduce the amount of risk going forward. And certainly this study did because the safety was achieved, our distance was achieved, and the handling of the lens was unbelievable. In fact, Dr. Vasquez gave us other opportunities to make improvements not only to our lens delivery system, but also to the IOL itself to make it even easier for surgeons to deliver in the eye. And so we were really excited about that. So our next milestone is our protocol development, design, and implementation with Group 2. When you start talking about a life impact, if you can take a patient who can barely see 3 feet in front of them, give them a technology that allows them to see in the distance, as well as to pick up in this image an electronic media like a cell phone and be able to enjoy reading, driving, and living independence, that's pretty exciting. Our patients had severe vision loss coming into the study, and there were two that were really considered legally blind, and they are now experiencing a meaningful improvement in everyday vision. And my hat off to the surgeon and his technique and his staff for being able to deliver that. But a lot of that also speaks to the scientists and the engineers who actually developed this technology and the fact that we have a win learn R&D philosophy. Every time we look at this technology, we're looking at how can we make it better. And we want to make it better specifically before we go into the FDA study, because that is the study that allows us to move into a commercial posture. And we want to make sure that we go into the market with the best possible lens that we can. So we're real excited that our patients in Group One have a new sense of independence and lifestyle improvements that are just meaningful to them and their families. So when you look at our Group Two surgeries and you start forecasting forward, with the lens, we've optimized our lens delivery system. In fact, we actually showed Dr. Vasquez what that that new delivery system looks like, you have to think about the lens delivery system as the way in which we put the lens in the eye. And that's the business end of this technology that the doctor is intimately working with. They don't physically take the lens and stick it in the eye. They use a delivery system to help do that. And so making sure that that delivery system is the absolute best it could be is really important. The second thing is making sure that we improve on clarity and we improve on how the lens gets folded and how it lays in the eye. And so with a win-learn R&D concept, it enables us to take surgeon feedback. And so the image on the right-hand side is the actual Apex surgical team that has been part of our study, collaborating on a day's worth of surgery and how those patients are doing. That collaboration turns into real-time feedback and insights that actually drive improvements. So we are real excited about not only the skill set of the surgery team, which is pictured here, but also the fact that they know how to collaborate and share their thoughts with us. I have always been an individual that is very open to feedback, particularly feedback that helps us get better. I'm not opposed to someone saying your baby's ugly. But if you make that comment, help me understand how we make the baby and the process even better. And this team has just been classy with doing that. Finally, confidence. We have a lot of confidence. In fact, my team, and I just had a leadership meeting today, is 100% confident that our Ocumetics IOL technology platform, following these results, is where we need to go. And we are looking forward to opportunities to optimize our technology to make it even better. We are an innovative group and we look for innovative solutions to actually make our technology better. So, after reviewing the data, and I've done it in detail with our lead investigator here, I'm 100% confident that we are on the right track and that we can move forward with this technology. Just the Group 1 results have actually confirmed our technology viability and our ability to scale this once we do get into a commercial posture. So we know how to make it, we know how to make it better, we know what the handling characteristics are, we know what the patient engagement looks like. So we are positioned to really do extremely well with our technology. And my hat off to my entire team for helping us get to this position. Over the holiday, I received a tremendous amount of email, particularly from WhatsApp, about when we were going to release the results. And so I thought about how do we release the results and when do we release the results? I thought that I would be missing if I didn't add a slide on the complexity of what we are dealing with when we actually do a clinical study. So conducting a clinical study is highly complex, expensive, and time consuming, often taking years to plan, execute, and analyze the data. So on the right-hand side of this slide is a patient pathway for a clinical trial. And so this is our clinical trial map. And there are a number of steps that are included in the map, all the way from creating the awareness and doing the recruiting, all the way down to where you see the red circle, which is the follow-up and monitoring. And that is the uh, limited pacing step when you do a clinical trial. And why do I say that? Well, first of all, patients get the surgery for free, they get the technology for free. We pay for it. So the companies actually pay for it, but for doing that, they are required to come to their post-op visits. We can't move further and we can't even do the analysis on the results until after the patients have done their post-op visits. So when we say it's 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, there's a window within the 3 month time period that these patients have to come in. And when we have a delay with patients coming in, it actually skews when we can actually release the data. So part of the release of our 3 month result was dependent on when all the patients came in for their post-op visits. The second thing is we have to go back and make sure that we have a database that has a lot of data integrity associated with it. We want to make sure that we didn't transpose numbers. We want to make sure that the last person in didn't erase anything that the previous team had put in. And so we have to go back and we have to scrub the database to make sure that it does match up and marry up very nicely to data integrity. If we have any kind of post-op surprises, we have to do post-op management of those patients. And so that's engaging the medical staff to oversee these patients. And keep in mind, study patients are mixed in with regular clinical patients. And so just because it's a study doesn't mean that they're going to prioritize those patients over their regular clinic patients. We just kind of get mixed in with that entire flow. And then the final thing, when you have turnover, you have to do staff training. And so one of the things that we did have is we had new members joining the team that had to be trained. The final piece of that is every step matters. Patients are the heart and soul of any clinical study, and we want to make sure we do it right. And the big thing for us is we're doing our first in human, so we know all the answers and we know kind of some of the things that we're going to have to be dealing with once we get into an FDA pivotal trial, which is a three-phase trial. It takes 3 years to get your final approval. And when we get through phase one, we want to be able to take advantage of early commercialization if that regulatory provision is available for us outside of the US. So everything has to be done pristine in order to do that. I often receive comments from different experts around the world. Dr. Mark Lobanov happens to be a cataract refractive surgeon that is in Minnesota, and he made a comment about from a safety study perspective. This is important as a company moves first to prove no harm. In the safety study, a good result is an improvement in the vision of the patient's pre-op condition and their post-op condition. So FDA requires us through the fail-safe laws to do no harm. And if we can't demonstrate do no harm, you can't actually move your study forward. So we have to make sure that we manage our patients the right way and do the right number of testing measures to actually get them to a place where they're seeing well and their safety is not in question. So I really appreciate Dr. Lobanov's comments on that. So what's our next step? Well, here's the milestone chart that we provided to you guys when we first did group one, and big check mark for group one. We're going to follow these patients out for 6 months, but we've gotten through our 3 month provision with these patients, and the focus that we had with these patients were really safety and distance vision, although they are reporting that they are seeing well enough to actually read. We weren't really measuring that. We just wanted to make sure that we stepped up to the measurement of do no harm and that the patient's safety was taken into consideration and their distance vision was very good. Moving to patient group two, which we are in the position of doing that right now. We're going to be studying safety and distance once again. So safety and distance will be a theme throughout the first in human study, but we're adding another primary observation, which will be how well do they actually read? So we'll put them behind some machines where we can actually measure how well they are able to read and how well they're able to see um, up close. And so we're working with the clinic now to identify the patients, look at the protocol, and make sure that we manage everybody to the protocol that was approved through the ethics committee, and then we'll get that studied. And so as we get to 1 month and 3 month data with group two, we'll also still be reporting out on 6 month, 9 month, and 12 month results with group one. One of the things I'm considering right now, and I haven't made the decision, is adding some elements of group three to the group two cohort so that we can actually get that done sooner. And so I'm working on that. I'm working with our primary investigator to see if that makes sense and if they can accomplish that. That ad would be what we refer to as bilateral implantation of the lens. So instead of putting an Ocumetics lens in one eye and a reference lens or control lens in the other eye, we would actually put two Ocumetics lenses in both eyes. And so we haven't made that decision yet, but that's something that I'm considering and thinking through how we would actually do that. So with that, I'm going to stop and open the microphones up to questions. I will say, Grant, as you get prepared to do so, we are super excited about where we are. We have deliberately taken our time to report our results because at the end of the day, we have to live and die by the results that we get from the study. There are companies that are actually in our segment who can't even get through a first in human protocol. There are companies that I have been invited to go see and tell them what we're doing to get through our first in human protocol. And they are very, very excited and envious of where we are. Part of what allows us to do that is our win, learn, R&D mentality. So we never fail. We just figure out what we didn't do well and we learn from that experience. And then we constantly optimize. The example I can give you is we want a horse at the end of the study, not a camel. Both are four-legged animals and both have ears, but they do two entirely different things. And so if we're setting out to do a horse, make a horse, I want to make sure at the end of the study we end up with a horse. So with that, Grant, I'm going to turn it over to you and ask you to fire away with any questions if you have them.
Okay, thank you, Dean. And you jumped in right off the top of the webinar. I didn't even get a chance to introduce you and say all the wonderful things I was planning on saying. So
Well, you
we
can
have to
still do
bypass
that.
that. Just so people who are on this webinar, and thank you for attending, are aware, the Howard Group works with Ocumetics to broaden awareness of the company within the investment, institutional, and investor communities, and we've just started with Ocumetics a few months ago, and we're very pleased with it. And also, by way of disclosure, we are shareholders in the company. Uh, Dean, I think you could probably take this slide down, and then everybody can have a much better look at your beaming smile.
All right.
Um, Already a number of questions are in, and as Dean said off the top, if you do have personal questions, uh, please email us, Dean. This is an investor conference, and we'd like to stick with that theme. So thank you again. First question: when is the second study going to start?
Good question. So we've made the decision to move forward, and the slide that I showed about the journey is the repeat of what we need to do. So we are making patients aware that the study is going. We'll be doing the recruiting for those patients. Once we recruit the patients, they have to be screened to make sure that they have a healthy, viable ocular system, and then we'll get them all set up for surgery. If I had to give you a forecasted date, I would probably say that we'll start doing surgery with those patients in maybe 2 months, given what they need to go through to be a good qualified candidate. So in about 2 months, we'll be starting that off.
A couple of questions on the second study here. The first part of it is the second study going to use the same lens or a different version?
It's a different version. Every time we do something with the lens, whether it's a biocompatibility animal study or now because we are in humans, we're always looking to improve the lens. So we already know how to make this lens even better. And so the second group will actually be able to take advantage of the improvements that are coming out.
So with the second study, are you going to be implanting lenses in a single eye? Both.
So initially, it will be a bilateral implantation. So it will be Ocumetics in one eye and a control lens in the other eye. And then once we're very, very comfortable with the new lens performance, we'll go to a bilateral implantation where we will put Ocumetics in both eyes.
Two parts of one question here. Did the Ocumetics lens provide any accommodative vision for Group 1 subjects? And second part, why weren't near-sight results released?
Well, let me take the question and answer it backwards. When you write a protocol, you release the results from your protocol. Group 1, we never intended to look at accommodation. We observed it as a surgical observation, but in terms of a primary endpoint, it was never a primary endpoint. So you don't report on stuff like that. Anecdotally, from the doctor, he knows that his patients are seeing really well because they can both see in the distance and they can read a near acuity chart. So we didn't pick the numbers, but we know that they are seeing up close as well as seeing in the distance.
The next question is really about four or five questions, so I'll take them one at a time. What range of accommodation is expected, 3D or more?
So the lens, when it was originally designed on the bench, we got up to 14 diopters worth of accommodation. You cannot put that in a human eye. That's way too much. You can't even put it in an animal eye because you couldn't even measure accommodation in an animal. So the ANSI standards call for 2 diopters of accommodation or better. Right now, our lens is able to deliver 3 1/4, and we think we can actually, with the new optimized design, push it to even do maybe 3 1/2. So I would feel very comfortable saying 3 1/2 diopters worth of accommodation.
Treated people feel the focus sensation.
Say that again.
Do treated people feel the focus sensation? And I'll continue it. Like when looking at a far object, near is blurred, and when looking at far, near is blurred.
Um, so you typically see stuff like that with a camera. The brain has a magical way of eliminating that type of dysphotopsia. In other words, if the brain, if you are looking in the distance, the brain will disregard any kind of near image that's way up close. And then vice versa, if you're looking close, it will kind of fog out what the distance is, but you never see it as a problem because the brain knows what the brain is doing and what it's trying to see. So your ocular system is in real good concert with what your brain is doing. So the brain knows how to factor those things out. Um, so Grant, I guess what I'm trying to say is if you're looking in the distance, it's going to be crystal clear all the way out to infinity. When you're looking up close, it's going to be crystal clear while you're looking up close. It's not going to be that middle range vision that you see with progressive glasses, where you have to hit it just right in order to see really well, and you're not in that fuzzy area. That's not how IOL technology works.
Eye-related question. Are you using AI? And I presume this is in relation to lens design. Are you using AI or can you use AI to speed up any part of the process?
Well, AI is still learning, and I don't think there's an AI bot that is currently available to actually drive a CAD machine to cut a lens or can take CAD drawings and put them into a mold and drive whatever that optical mold is. We're using old-fashioned engineering from two different places. So the design actually comes out of Monterrey, Mexico, and the manufacturing actually comes out of Erlangen, Germany. And neither of those organizations are using AI.
Question here that made me chuckle, but I'm going to leave it for the end as a closer here, and we'll come back to it. Um, Given the large accommodation potential of this new IOL, would it be right to assume that it will eliminate the need for accurate preoperative refractive predictions and post-operative adjustments, such as those offered with the light adjustable lens?
Um, so RX Sight has a really interesting technology, light adjustability. That technology used to be called the Calhoun lens. And so, in order to determine what type of lens in terms of refractive range, you still have to do the preoperative type work. So, you need to assess the health of the eye. You need to determine, in our case, what type of lens you're going to put in terms of the range. All of our lens components have the same amplitude, if you will, of accommodation. But when you do the lens calculation, you do have to take that into consideration as well. We don't have the ability to do what the Calhoun lens does, and that is you put a technology in, you hit it with the technology afterwards, and you dial in the refractive component. That's not our technology. Our technology is you put it in based on the preoperative information and you allow the lens to settle in. Now, one of the things that we are seeing, which is really positive with our technology, is the effective lens position. So a lot of times what happens is you have a refractive surprise because where you thought you put the lens has now drifted a little bit. We're not seeing that because the lens size itself with the finger-like haptics that are on there, once you put it in, it's pretty much in place. And so you don't see optical drift as the eye heals. It's pretty much where it needs to be. We need to study that just to make sure that we can say there's a predicted value of where we placed the lens and where it ended up. From a light adjustable perspective, we don't do that. And I don't like the challenges that they have right now because light adjustability is not an accommodating technology. What they're doing is they're doing monovision. So they're not even giving you accommodation. They're treating one eye for distance and one eye for near. That's the only way they can get you to the point where you can read and see in the distance. So they're not really even a player in the accommodated range. And with the new ANSI standards coming out saying that you have to have dynamic movement of the lens, they can't play because their lens is a fixed focus lens with the treatment via another machine to dial in the refraction. So these are two entirely different technologies, and it requires a little bit of finessing to make their technology actually work versus once we put our lens in, um, it kind of works with what nature has there. So Grant, these are two entirely different technologies in how they work.
Question here from an individual asking about how to invest in Ocumetics rather than getting into the weeds. And I'll take this quickly, Dean, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
If you just send me an email, it's grant@howardgroupinc.com. Uh, we can direct you to places where you could open up a discount account, but we don't know where you live, and we don't provide advice. We can just say, go open a brokerage account, or here's some places to go open a discount account. So again, grant@howardgroupinc.com, and we'll show you some places, and then you make your own decision. But thank you for asking. What is the time estimation to be able to have it for people who are only have bad vision but not legally blind?
So it depends on how bad your cataract is. So if you are getting closer to the ripe age of 60, 65, 70 years of age, and your ophthalmologist or optometrist in some cases have said that you have the early signs of a cataract. Uh, if that is not within the next 3 years, basically, uh, you won't be able to take advantage of this technology because we still have to get through FDA, and that's a 3-year process.
There any known downsides to the lens? Anything that is more difficult for the eye to do once it's implanted?
Not that we are aware of as of right now. Keep in mind, we're still in our first in human and we're learning each and every day as we go forward. One of the things that's really nice that we can report on is the process by which you do the surgery has not changed. The technology material that's available are biocompatible materials that have been available for quite some time and the body tolerates extremely well. It's a spherical lens, so we are only correcting the refractive error, so we're not dealing with astigmatism. Although in the study, we learned that you can actually rotate this lens in the eye. So if we come out with a toric version of this, we could rotate the lens into the right orientation. So that was a aha learning moment for us. Um, as I said, I rely on the medical staff at Apex to tell us what those patients are doing, and they haven't really given us any side effects that we need to be worried about at this particular point in time.
Looks like we have a few questions based on some previous comments you made in past webinars about meetings with some of the big lens companies. People are
Yeah.
looking for any updates if there's been additional conversations or anything that you can say in that regard.
Yeah, so I won't say who, but I just met in November with a large lens manufacturer. They called me and invited me in. And what they wanted was they wanted to get an update as we were getting closer to our 3-month reveal of our results. They wanted me to come in and present to them what we're doing in our study, how our lens is doing, how the patients are doing. And they actually got into questions about, did I see any challenges in the marketplace with this type of technology? So I had a very good um, meeting with one company. It was an almost a 2 hour meeting, hour and 40-minute meeting with them. And then while I was at the American Academy of Ophthalmology meeting in Orlando, I met with two other companies. And they're following us now on our social media channels. And also, as part of some of the reports that they get from the investment community, with the analysts are now following us. Right now, we're being followed by five analysts, and they periodically report on how well we're doing and what our stock is doing and what technology is currently available. So I would say the strategics are very interested in what we're doing. And keep in mind, we're this little small company out of Vancouver who wasn't on the radar about a year ago, and now we're all over the social channels. And when you go to these different financial meetings, um, it's really encouraging when people seek you out because they want to get an update or they want to hear more or they heard about something. They want to find out if in fact it's true. So Grant, the update is I just had face-to-face meetings with some big strategics, and they are pretty excited about where we are at this point in time with our first in human patients.
Get a few questions here, but they're all in around the theme of near sight measurements. And you did touch upon this earlier, but folks are wondering why more information isn't available in that regard.
So with group two, if you remember the slide that I had on the timeline, group two is the group that we push vision. And what I mean by push vision is we don't just say, hey, can you see this card? Or can you read this line? Or can you read these letters? When we push vision, we basically say, tell me how far down on the eye chart you can read so that we can actually get a functional number about their ability to resolve an image through the IOL. That's in group two. With group one, we basically ask them, can you see the letters that were on a medicine bottle? And they either said yes or no. They even ask a couple of patients to just read the letters that they could see. And that's all we did. So we didn't push vision. With group two, we'll be pushing vision. So we'll report out what their distance looks like and what their near looks like. But as long as they could read, we were pretty happy with group one. Because a monofocal lens gives you distance vision. And so for us to be able to put a lens in that gave them distance and near with some intermediate is pretty good.
Question in and around the financing and the first tranche closed here a little while ago on the first $1 million with Centurion One. You're in the middle of a financing, so you're very restricted on what you can say about that, but there's a question about how it's going.
Yeah, so we have a lot of restrictions on what we're allowed to say and not. We closed the first round right at the end of the year, and we are working through the second tranche. And so the first round was tranche one, and we are working through the second tranche as we speak. And that's about all I can say right now.
Question about, how long before the lens is commercially available, which you've addressed. But there's a part, when you have FDA, presuming you get FDA approval, how long after that would you anticipate it would be commercially available, and would it be available in Europe?
Yeah. So there are two commercial pathways that I'm looking at both. One is a regulatory maneuver called CE marking. And what CE marking allows you to do is to commercialize the technology outside the US, even as you go through an FDA study. In order to do and CE marking actually came out of Europe, so it's a European standard and a regulatory option that is available to any company. The caveat is in order to get anything CE marked now, you actually have to show data. So after we get through phase one of the FDA study, we would take phase one data once approved by the FDA to move to phase two. We would take phase one data and hand that over to the European authorities to CE mark this technology in Europe, Australia, the northern part of South America, and Central America. Those are places that really accept CE marking opportunities. And so we would take advantage of that regulatory standard and do early commercialization of this technology while we're still going through the FDA process. Um, Inside North America, so Canada, Mexico, and the US, all index off of FDA. So there's no way to do early commercialization basically inside North America because everything is indexing off of FDA. But there are other places around the world that we can do early commercialization, and the way to do that is through the CE mark regulatory process.
Question in and around the stock and the market, because as we all know, there's been some downward pressure on the stock, early in the new year here. And this individual's asking if you have any comments on that.
Well, we knew that there was selling occurring in December, and there may still be some residual for tax purposes. So those that had some tax burdens sold some shares to pay for that. So we did see that. Roger, my CFO, and I were just talking about the downward pressure on the stock today, and we're looking to do a little bit more analyzing of what's really happening with our stock. So I don't really have a broader answer other than what we knew to be true, and that was individuals were selling to pay off a tax burden. But we will be looking into what's happening with the stock as we move forward into the month.
I think I'd just like to add to that is we know based on calls to our office that a lot of people were waiting for yesterday's news release and for the webinar. And this provides a lot of additional clarification. And we also have to be mindful of the fact that we're in a bit of a bubble right now. Well, more than a bubble as it relates to junior resource stocks, which have been attracting a lot of money. And then there's volatility in the market. I could go on, but that doesn't make any sense. But based on today's trading and the volumes were way up, it seems to be at this point reaching a bit of a plateau. So we're hopeful as people become more aware and appreciate the magnitude of what you've achieved to this point.
Yeah.
Um, as an investor, can you speak to any interest from the other eye companies to purchase this technology? And I know you have to be delicate around that question.
Um, um, let's let me answer that by saying that there are five or six strategics that make IOLs of a garden variety. Of those companies, three are very interested in where we are and what we're doing. And there's one that is constantly calling me just to get updates. So we know that there's interest from the strategics. Um, Whether or not they are in a position or would be in a position to actually do a deal is hard to predict. But at least the interest is there for them to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, can you give us an update about how well you're doing?" Typically, small companies like to go to big companies and say, "Will you buy us?" It's really good when the big companies reach out to you and say, "Hey, you're on our radar. Tell us how you're doing." Because if they really want you, they'll figure out a way to get to you. And so right now, I'm extremely happy with taking those phone calls, and I take them all the time. And I share with them as much as I can. And with a couple of the companies, I actually have NDAs in place so that we can actually freely have a pretty robust discussion.
Some technical matters. Are the results for distance vision accuracy as good as those for a monofocal IOL, or are they even better?
The short answer is yes. And so the way you do a trial, if you put a protocol together and you say bigger, better, best, that means that you're going to do a direct comparison, in our case, a monofocal, which is our control lens, to our targeted lens, which is Ocumetics. And we're going to report out the data basically saying that we are better than the other technology. We didn't write our protocol like that, and FDA actually hates that when you do stuff like that. What we did was we basically said we have a control lens, which is a monofocal lens. And so our targeted lens has to meet the standard that's already been established with this technology over here. And in our case, we've met the standard, we've met the burden, and to say that we are better is not something that we can say today because we never studied it that way. We just wanted to make sure that we weren't worse. And so I do know that we're not worse. Uh, One thing that a monofocal lens can't do, and grant, a monofocal technology gives you distance vision. We give you distance vision with the Ocumetics, but we also give you clear, intermediate, and near, which is why it's an accommodating technology versus just a monofocal. So the goal is to not be any worse and then to give you additional things that a monofocal can't give you.
Okay, we were going to wrap at the top of the hour, but there are a lot of questions, so we'll go a little bit longer here, but we will have to shut her down in about 15 minutes.
Okay, I've got time.
Okay, can the Ocumetics lens be used by someone who has already had cataract surgery?
You'd have to talk to a ophthalmologist about that because the very first thing you have to do is remove the current technology you have today. That's very difficult.
The next one is sort of interesting because you filled us in on 2020 and people's interpretation of it and how aging changes all that. What are the actual I numbers in regards 2025, any 2020, and are you upgrading the lens itself for better performance?
Yeah, so our patients are 2020 or better. So I assume that's what you're asking me. You're asking me about our numbers. Yeah, so there were a lot of people who didn't understand what a 2020 looked like. So our patients are 2020 and better. We do have one patient that could not be refracted to 2020, and she was the one that had the worst vision in the study, but she absolutely loves her vision. So I am thrilled for her, primarily because of where she started. When you are 20, 250, you can't see one step in front of you. And now this lady can get her driver's license. So that's incredible.
We have more questions about your conversations with the large companies, and that's already been addressed. Does the company intend to uplift from the OTCQB to the QX, which is the step up in the near future? Any plans around that?
We're having discussions about that as we speak.
Um, Somebody who joined late, but they ask, will patients be able to reverse the procedure? And if so, where would that leave the patient's vision? Could they go and get another lens inserted? Well, that's somewhere down the road.
Yeah, so cataract procedures are not really meant to be reversible, but they are reversible. So if you get a mismatch of a lens in your eye, your surgeon, particularly a skilled surgeon, can actually do, it's called an extract. They can take that lens out and put a different technology in. So it's available if you need to do a lens exchange because of the technology not really matching up.
Technical one is the incision for the AIOL no larger than for existing IOLs.
Right. So it's a 3.0 incision. So we try to do sub threes. And the reason for that is with a 3 millimeter incision, you don't have to put a suture in. You can just hydrate the wound, and the wound is a self-sealing kind of wound. But if you go over 3.0, you may have to put a suture in to keep the wound tight. So the answer to that is yes.
Okay, this one gets really technical. This is thank you for your first answer, but I'm not sure what we were answering. This is what about MTF values, which I don't know what those are. Do they meet natural lenses or monofocal lenses since light isn't split like in multifocal?
It's
What
actually
ab- what
better.
about what about
Yeah.
scotopic vision?
Yeah, yeah,
There
yeah.
you go.
Yeah. So let me take MTF first. So MTF is something that we have to make sure that we do because that helps with really the clarity of the technology. And so what we do when we make a lens, not only do we measure its refractive capability, but also we have a threshold that comes out of the ANSI standards for the modulation transfer function. And we have to meet that standard. So ANSI sets the standards, they pass it over to ISO, and we do all the reporting and the studies under the ISO guidelines, but they are the ANSI standards. So our technology meets all of the ANSI standards for MTF. In terms of different light situations, which is where the term scotopic came from, um, we in fact, Brent, let me take one step back. When you look at technologies that are multifocal in nature that split light, if you go into a dim light situation like a restaurant, a play, a club, you can have some challenges with just being able to resolve certain images. Because we are a spherical technology and we're not splitting light, we don't have that as a challenge with our technology. So the short answer is we don't have a challenge in different light situations like you would with a technology that is basically, it's not really splitting light, it's actually deflecting the light. So a technology that's a trifocal, bifocal, or even a quadrifocal type technology for the eye. Uh, as light hits it, it deflects the light away, and it creates, we call them dysphotopsias. It creates different light conditions that are not good for the patient, and they have to kind of manage their way through that. We don't have that as an issue with our current technology. And that, Grant, I don't know if you remember one discussion that you, me, and Dave had about side effects. This falls into that category of side effects. So not being able to see in all light environments is really a side effects of some of these technologies. We don't see that today with our technology.
Check mark. Individual asking about the financing, which has already been addressed, but just to repeat in case they missed it, the first tranche was closed on 1 million, and the current raise was for up to 2.5 million. Sorry, there's a number of questions that have already
Oh,
been
keep going.
answered here. No, no, I'm just saying a lot of them have already been addressed. Um, I'm so excited for this technology. Thank you so much for existing. My question is, I have high astigmatism. Would this pass for applying for trials?
No. And the reason
Okay.
is the lens will not correct the astigmatism. We would have to do a adjacent procedure to correct the astigmatism. And basically that's either use a laser or a knife to reduce the amount of astigmatism a patient may have. And you don't want to do that in a straightforward clinical trial.
Okay. And the reason I asked that, even though it's a little more personal in nature, is that there were a couple of questions around stigmatism. One individual asked, will you offer a toric version?
Yes,
And maybe you
I
can
can answer
explain
that.
what that means.
So when you have astigmatism, toricity is so I'm going to geek out a little bit and talk clinical. When you have a surface that is either compromised because of shape or compromised because of something else, an injury, etc. And light hits that surface, it bends it a little bit different than just a spherical round surface. In order to take care of that, I'm trying not to be too technical, but in order to take care of that, you have to introduce a technology that corrects for that astigmatism, or what we refer to as a toric IOL. And Ocumetics today does not have a toric IOL that's been developed. On the Ocumetics research side, which we do still have our research arm, we have already looked at can we make a toric version of this lens? Part of the challenge that we had was can you rotate the lens so that you can manage the toricity? And we found out with two of our patients in our current group that our lens rotates very nicely. So the short answer is uh, on the research side of Ocumetics, we're looking at a toric version. On the development side of Ocumetics, which is the lens that we're working with today, it does not come in a toric version on that lens, but we know how to make it, and that's a good thing.
Um, this next one, I presume the individual is talking about the group one. Did all the patients, were they able to read? I'm presuming that means post-op.
Yes.
Okay. Um, Questions about graduating to the QX or a full NASDAQ listing, and that will be a process. Um, I'm not sure about this, but for someone like me who's basically on the cusp of having my cataracts cooked enough and ready for surgery, how long would I have to wait to get your lenses commercially? Well, you've already answered the question about commercially, but it seems that there are a lot of questions in and around this whole cataract area, so maybe you can address that in a more general way.
Yeah, so if you have been diagnosed with a early cataract, the chance of you being able to take advantage of this lens, um, if your cataracts are getting worse, is probably slim. But if you've been diagnosed and the doctor says, hey, we'll just kind of watch it, this technology won't be available, at least in the US, for the next 3 years. Outside the US, it could be 18 months. So it depends on where you are, and your ability to move around the world. So, for example, when we do the pivotal study for the FDA trial, we're going to have 13 sites. It's going to be Canada, Mexico, US, Europe, and probably maybe a site in Australia. If any of those five are interesting to you, then maybe you can contact the practices because we can't put patients in studies. We can just tell you where the studies are being taken place, and you can contact the practices. So I would assume this might be somebody in Canada. If you're in Canada, we're going to have two sites in Canada, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. And if you're in the middle of the country, you can go either way. But you would have to contact the offices once we make the declaration as to where the studies are going to take place. You'd have to contact those offices, go in and do the evaluation to see if you qualify as a candidate because the company can't do that. We don't select patients.
All right, interesting. We seem to have some people attending who are from Australia.
Nice.
Um, yes. Um, one individual asking me, how do I get into stage 3 trials? I presume the best way to find out is the way you've already answered. Um, he said he's also interested in investing. So I guess if you give him a lens, he might be interested in investing in the company. Um,
One of the ways to find out where we're going with the pivotal trial, which is what the FDA trial is that information will be available on the website as we move through our different milestones. And so the next big group of milestones for us is to finish up stage 2, give that information, stage 2 and combination of stage 2 and 3, give that information to the FDA and then also submit our IDE, investigational device exemption application to the FDA so that we can actually kick our pivotal trial off. But all that information will be on our website as we move forward. So just stay close to the website for the most up-to-date information.
we we have more questions about financing, uplisting, cataracts, a number of things that have already been covered, but I would like to close with one question that I saw at the beginning of this, and
Okay.
maybe Chuck. It said, "Mr. Burns, why do you wear glasses?"
Oh, excellent question. Um, So let me answer the question this way. I have actually had cataract surgery. So I was one of those patients that had a early cataract, and I got the absolute best lens that was commercially available. So just go to the website or ask AI what is the best cataract multifocal lens available, and that's the one I have in my eyes. I have a lot of grant. I use the word dysphotopsia, but I have a lot of side effects. And driving at nighttime is still a problem for me. And I'm 2.5 years out from when I had my cataract surgery. The reason I wear glasses is my glasses do not have a refractive component, so it doesn't help me read or see in the distance. My glasses have a prism in it, and when I was a child, I went with what's considered an undiagnosed eye issue where my left eye turns out. If your eyes turn in, we call those patients cross-eyed. When they turn out, we call them cockeyed. And so my left eye, when I get really tired, it wants to turn out. My glasses have a prism in this lens here, and it keeps the image nice and straight. So instead of seeing double vision, I see everything on top of each other. So Mr. Burns has a muscle issue in his left eye, which is why he has to wear the glasses. The other thing is I've had cataract surgery myself, and when patients call me, and I just took a call this morning, and they ask, "Hey, I'm getting ready to have cataract surgery. I heard you were a really good person to talk to because you've had it. Here are my lens choices. Am I a candidate for your lens?" And it's like, no, because you need to have surgery today. And they will say, "What would you choose?" And I will say, if I had to make a selection all over, here's the lens that I would choose. And it's not the one that I have in my eyes. Does that make sense, Grant?
I thought it was a great question.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Mm.
And I love talking about this environment. For those of you who don't really know who I am, um, I've been in this space for 35 years. I worked for Alcon for 28 of those years and then consulted and now as the CEO for Ocumetics. I've got a lot of experience in retina, cataract, refractive, and other disease states like glaucoma and stuff like that. And I just love what I do because every morning I get up, I get to say I help patients see better. And so I'm living in my purpose right now, and I thoroughly believe in what it is I'm doing, so much so that my wife has the early signs of a cataract. And I ask her all the time if she could just hold out a little while longer. I'll see if I can find a place for her to get into the study. And that's how much I believe in this technology for me to even recommend it to my own wife. So if that's not commitment, I don't know what commitment is. But we're doing really well for those of you who have invested with the organization. One other data point that I'll give you is I've got 15 FDA approvals, so I actually know how to kind of work through this process, and I see Ocumetics doing extremely well. And the first indication is really how well we're doing in the first in human studies. So just stay tuned, stay close to us, look at the website. I answer all the emails that come in about the company and technology, so I'm not bashful. If you send me an email, I'll respond to you. If you want to invest, you've got grants information, so feel free to do it in two places. We do private placements from time to time, but also we do have the open market. So there are a lot of opportunities for you to get involved, and I would encourage you to do so because uh, I think we are that shooting star that everybody's been looking for. And I'm just so delighted to be out in front as the ambassador of this company talking about what we're doing. And I just love my team to death because they are the ones who are the rock stars. I'm the one that just gets to stand out in front and brag about how well they're doing it. So with that, Grant, I'll turn it back to you to close us out.
And I just would like to address one thing here. I just noticed this, an individual was asking about, what are you doing to promote the company and expand the awareness and everything else? We've just been working together about 4 months, but I think you will confirm that over those past 4 months, you've met and been introduced to a lot of people, and this is where it all has to start, is getting people comfortable with the story, and then following the progress.
I would agree with you. I have, and I keep track of it actually. I have met through my interaction with you and Dave Grant. 168 individuals who are investors in a lot of different type of technologies. So I've met 168 people. I've been traveling around the world to do so. Um, I just got a major invite to one of the largest investment banks in Canada, if not the largest. And Dave and I will be meeting with them on Monday. They've heard about our story and they want to sit down and talk to us about what our needs are. So that's been really good. As I mentioned earlier, I've met with three of the five strategics and they are excited about our story. So there are very few people who are not excited about what we're doing. And because of my pedigree in the eye care space, I try to make sure that I stay on the high end of integrity and that they understand that we are a very ethical company and we believe in doing it the right way. I would rather spend the time to do it right than to take the time to do it over. And so, with that, I'll leave you with that thought.
Okay, and thank you for that wrap and those closing comments. Again, to everyone who participated, thank you very much for attending. I apologize if we didn't get into every detail of every question, but we do have to wrap, and we're a little over time already. So feel free to email myself or Dave Burwell at the Howard Group with those questions, or Dean, and we'll try to help in whatever way possible. We're always open, uh, and introduce yourselves to us. We would welcome that. So, Mr. Burns, thank you. And to everyone who's looking at the company or has already become a shareholder, thanks to you, and we'll be reporting back to all of you very soon. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Bye bye now.